Oh crap! There we go, that's better. Hey, it's Joel, the 3D printing nerd, and this printer right here is the 8-inch Wombot Exilis printer, and I'm gonna tell you about it and all of this stuff in front of it. I printed with this printer, and I'm gonna tell you about the stuff too. And it's a good story. It's a really good story. So stick around and let's do this. You ready? Go. Welcome back. I've got my protopasta mug filled with coffee. Why am I drinking coffee? Well, it's late in the evening and I'm fresh out of Red Bull. Red Bull, if you're seeing this, please send me a case of Red Bull. I could really use it. Coffee. That tastes like it's working. You may be asking yourself, why am I on my knee next to this printer? It's a good question. Really, this is the only table in the house I could find. Normally, I would love a table that was just about my height, and then I could stand at it and I could talk about things. But no, I don't have one of those tables. I have a card table, and when we're not playing poker or Go Fish, we're reviewing printers. The story of this Wombot Exilis printer starts quite some time ago, and well, here's how it started. A guy by the name of Anthony, who runs the Hot End channel, he got in contact with me and said, "Hey, you need yourself a Wombot." And I was like, "I need myself a Wombot?" And he said, "Yeah, you need a Wombot. Let me talk to Aramis to see about getting you one." And full disclosure, I did get this machine at cost because their goal was for me to put it together and show it off on my YouTube channel. Well, I've done that, and I did put it together, though as you can tell, it looks like a science experiment because I suck at putting together kits. My G-Max printer was a kit, though it was partially assembled, and it looks okay, but this Wombot looks like it was wired by a 3-year-old. Yeah. So looks of the printer aside, it actually works really well. I'm not even joking about that. This was a kit in that I had to cut wires and I had to solder connections, and I built a voltage divider so I could run the auto leveling probe at 12 volts. I printed these new brackets that were provided for me because the old ones weren't right, and they made new ones. It's fantastic. So the rest of the story goes like this. After the kit arrived in the mail, I had almost no idea what I was doing. I was led via Facebook Messenger conversations from Anthony and Aramis on how to put this together. I wasn't the first person to have a Wombot kit, but I was an early adopter, and the instructions weren't exactly clear. And here's what's interesting. The printer itself technically wasn't finished. And this is one of the beautiful things about the Wombot printers in that they're being iterated and they're being continually improved, which is why the machine that I'm reviewing today isn't nearly what the machines you can buy from Wombot are. They look the same, I guess, but they've got different mechanics, different parts. They're bigger, they're put together, they're packaged differently. It's not a kit anymore. It's interesting. I'm hopefully going to get one of the new offerings and I'll be able to unbox that. But for now, this one doesn't get an unboxing. This one gets a straight review. As with any of my printer reviews, I follow 3 things. First, I tell you about the printer. I don't go over the technical details that you could find if you went to Google. I tell you about the printer. Like, I tell you what I think of the printer. I go over what I like about the printer. I go over what I don't like about the printer. And then at the end, I give you my final thoughts. Hey, let's start with the printer. The 8-inch Wombot Exilis kit printer is a rep-wrap style printer. It arrives in kit form, and not a partially assembled kit. It arrived in a kit where I had to cut and solder wires. The build platform is glass, it's heated, and its build area is 8 inches wide, 8 inches deep, and 13 inches tall. It's running Marlin firmware on a Ramps 1.4 board. It's got a 0.4 millimeter nozzle, and it's I think it's all metal all the way through. It's got a fan on the front. It's got this inductive sensor for bed leveling, auto bed leveling, in fact, and it works. I got to tell you, having auto bed leveling on a printer is a glorious thing, and when it works, there's nothing better than it. The Wombot itself isn't limited to PLA filament. It can print ABS, it can print PETG, it can print HIPS, it can print wood fill, it can print all of the exotics from ColorFab and Protopasta. It can print wood fill, Protopastas, exotics. It can print flexible filaments. It can print glow in the dark filaments. It printed everything I threw at it. This leads me to tell you about some of the prints that you see here in front of me, and it'll give you a good idea of how well this printer prints certain things. One of the first prints I did with the Wombot is this Roman Colosseum. It has a lot of fine detail, and this was printed in Aurorum PLA. The Wombot handled the detail miraculously, considering the fan shroud I had on at the time, and I'll explain that in a little bit. One of the challenges that I always like to throw at any printer is this dice tower, and it has stairs in the middle that you need to bridge across in order for them to be printed. It's got bars in the window and bars at the gate, and this gate is supposed to flip up and down. This was printed in Matterhacker's brown PLA that I had laying around, and I hadn't put in a bag for a while. The Wombot did a fantastic job with this. The stairs on the inside are perfect. The gate doesn't move because it's fused at the bottom, and there's some stringiness, but the stringy isn't the problem with the printer. The stringiness is in the settings that I used. But all in all, it did a fine job. This was a cool print, and I haven't had a chance to really talk about it much. It's a planter, and the idea is you put your plant and soil in this, you slide it into here, and then you can add water right here. This was printed in Matterhacker's brown PLA, and this was printed on the Wombot. In fact, it's stuck to the bed like that as it printed. So the bed adhesion was fantastic. This is a glass bed, and I used purple glue stick to hold it down. You probably remember the video that I released recently where I rusted a TARDIS, and this TARDIS was printed in Protopasta's magnetic iron PLA. The rusty one and the non-rusty one were both printed on this Wombot printer, and this shows that exotic filaments go through the nozzle with ease. These blue TARDISes? TARDIS? I don't know what's the plural of TARDIS. These blue TARDISes were printed on this Wombot. It's Boots Super Premium PLA, and other than a little bit of stringing, the details are amazing, especially if you check out the bars in the windows. They turned out wonderful. This is easily one of my favorite models ever to print. This is the G-Create rocket, modeled by Gordon of G-Create. It comes in two pieces. Here's the top, right here, and here's the rest of the rocket. And this was printed using ColorFab Silver PLA on a glass bed, and it turned out wonderful. Look at this thing. You remember my Groot Red Bull koozie, right? Well, here it is. And this was printed right here on this Wombot. The details are phenomenal, and the Wombot did a wonderful job using that filament to make this wonderful, wonderful koozie. I was really, really impressed with how well the Wombot did with this design. Have you downloaded and printed this yet? One of the things that was interesting with this printer is demonstrated with this bender head model. I don't know if you can tell, but this one is showing layer variances in color. And it was determined that it was a hardware problem with this printer. The brackets that you see here that are yellow were originally not yellow. They were black like the rest of the printed pieces. And what they did was bend a little too much under certain conditions when the rod that moves up and down was flexing a little bit, I guess. So Aramis took that information, he made a new bracket. This new bracket is included on all of his printers, and then he released the STL file so we could print it and put it on our Wombots. And that's why this bender helped solve a problem, and this bender shows you that the problem was fixed. Hey, now that I've shown you all these models, do you want to see it print? Yeah? Okay. let's print something. So using the menu system right here, I'll print from the SD card, and let's see what I've got. Let's see. I've got some cubes. I got some cubes. Let's give it a try. First, what's going to happen is it's going to heat up the bed, and this bed is set to heat up to 60 degrees centigrade. Once the bed is heated, it'll start heating up the nozzle. Once the nozzle's hot, it'll start its process of doing the bed leveling, where the sensor will drop down in 4 different places to assess bed level. Once that's done, it prints. All right, watching it warm up is boring, so we'll cut right here, and then when the video returns, you'll see the auto leveling process start to happen. Cheers. Here we go. It's almost there. It's set to go to 195. It goes a little bit above 195. It's at 197. Now it'll begin its procedure. I've got my iPhone to record it up close. So now it's homing on the 4 different points that it homes to. And it's doing the bed leveling calculation. Here's the 4th point. Once it's done with this, it'll go to the middle and start printing. Seems to be laying down a decent layer. Let's get up nice and close. Other than that stringy bit off the nozzle, it looks like it's doing a pretty good job. Well, that doesn't look too bad. Well, let's see it fill in and get to the next layer. Ooh, it's almost done filling in. Now it should speed up on the next layer. There we go. Well, that's not too bad at all. That's a good looking layer right there. Now it's starting the layers that have infill. It's doing a mighty fine job. So here's the interesting thing about this print and this printer specifically. I haven't turned it on in a couple weeks because I haven't had time to play with it. I took it from the laundry room, I moved it onto this table, I selected something from this little interface here, and then I hit go. So the auto bed leveling took care of any issues that may have resulted in me putting it on a different surface or having the frame be slightly out of whack or having the glass warp or the metal or whatever. It just takes care of it. And as you can see, it's laying down great layers. And this is one of the ways that this printer excels. And I'm going to get into the things that I like. This printer, when dialed in, prints beautifully. It takes full advantage of its all metal hot end, and it delivers filament like butter through its 0.4 millimeter nozzle. I've had, as you can tell, exceptional results with this printer, and I'm sad to see it go. Yes, I'm going to see it. I'll get to that at the end. One of the other things I like about this printer is the company in general. Armis over at Aurorum is iterating on the design constantly, and this Wombot has now transformed into a giant Wombot that they're going to be releasing soon. He's been posting pictures of it in the 3D printing groups that I'm a member of, and it's ginormous. And it's built on the same technology, and he's taking what he's learned from this machine, and he's just created a bigger and better machine. So one of the other things that I really like about this printer is how it's an iterative process, and how he's able to iterate quickly and get me parts that I need, or parts that are broken, or parts that are different now, and I can upgrade this printer as much as I want. Unfortunately, along with the good comes some of the bad. I'm going to start with, well, this printer. It was a kit. It was a kit where I would have to solder wires. And now that I know I can do it, I'm okay with it being a kit, but at the time I didn't know exactly what kit meant. And so that's a fault of mine. That's a fault of them explaining what the printer was. It turned out okay, but at that point in time, I was not very happy with my decision to get a Wombot. As you can tell, wiring it myself, well, I don't have the skills for that, and that's why there's a concern for safety. When I did wire it together and I plugged it in for the first time, there was a spark, and I quickly unplugged it. There was no damage, but at the same time, I didn't know that at the time, and so ever since I did that, I was a little weary about this machine. It's proven itself, and it hasn't caught fire or anything, and it's still performed well. So, you know, I got by with that. But again, it's my own. Part of what I don't like about this machine is my own experience with machines like this. I can't recommend this printer to someone who doesn't have the experience necessary to maintain it. The printed parts for the brackets are plastic, and I think these would be better served in metal. The heated bed on this machine takes a long time to get to temperature for ABS, and I can't get this bed to go above 103 degrees centigrade. Yes, it's a rep wrap machine, it's not covered, there could be drafts in the room or whatever, and I can print ABS successfully at 90 to 95 degrees on the bed, but it takes a long time for that bed to get that hot. For PLA at 55, 60 degrees centigrade, it's fine, but this bed specifically does not get hot, and it doesn't get hot fast. I've heard that the newer printers that they've released have better electronics and can heat the bed faster. This kind of threw me for a loop, and I don't know if this is normal with other machines, but the knob doesn't turn right, so if I turn it to the right, it makes the selector go up, and if I turn it to the left, it makes the selection go down. I don't know if that's standard for the Marlin firmware, but on my G-Max printers, which is, I had those printers before, turning to the right made the selector go down, and turning to the left made the selector go up. It throws me for a loop every time I use this machine. I don't know if it's because it was made in Australia and things there are upside down. Another thing I don't like about this printer is the fan shroud, and I'll explain. The original fan shroud with this printer blew the air straight down, and it was housed just left of the nozzle. So if you're printing back and forth and you get all the way to this side and then you come back, since the air is blowing straight down, you're never going to cool off the filament to the very, very right. It came with two, and I've taken a chunk out of the front so that it can blow some of the air directly under the nozzle. And in fact, the fan shrouds that come with the current Wombots have that little piece knocked out, and it blows some of the air towards the bottom of the nozzle. So even though I don't like this fan shroud, it's been fixed in future versions. And finally, there's no power button. There's no power button on this machine. You turn it on by plugging it in, and you turn it off by unplugging it. Every other printer I have has a power button. I firmly believe this should have a power button. It doesn't have a power button. We're at that point, aren't we? I got to give you some final thoughts about this printer. All right. Let me put my coffee down. This is a good printer. It's not the best printer. It's not the worst printer. This is a good printer. It prints magnificently. If you've taken the time to tune it, and if you've taken the time to make it behave like you want it to behave. Let me explain. I have two G-Max printers, and The second one was assembled for me and shipped to me, and it printed perfectly right out of the box. I have a Wombot printer. The Wombot Mini has an auto bed leveling system and a nozzle wiping system, and it printed right out of the box perfectly. Here's the interesting part. Those printers are expensive. I think we all agree on that. This printer was not expensive. At cost, this printer was not expensive, and even at retail for this printer, it was not expensive. And the grown-up next version of this, the Wombot XL, is 920 Australian dollars. 920 Australian dollars in US terms is $600, give or take. I think it is. I don't know. I'm sure right here I'll put the actual number, but it's close to that. So is a printer like this worth 600 or so US dollars? Absolutely. The new Wombots are not kits. They come pre-assembled, and they don't look like a third grader did the wiring job. They're pre-tested from the factory, and they're shipped really well. In fact, one of the users in our Wombot group, look right here, I'll put the video right here. She did an unboxing of the printer, and it's packed well. It comes with an example print. It comes with a bunch of styrofoam peanuts to keep it housed well, and then the printer is solid and put together and tight, and you just take it out of the box, and as far as I know, it's print right from the box. You may have to adjust the inductive sensor a little bit, but other than that, the new ones are better than this one. And that speaks again to the company's iterative process and being able to learn from any mistakes and take constructive criticism and push the product forward. The Wombot, this one, it's a good printer. Thankfully, I had the skills to put it together, and I had the help from Artemis and Anthony to put it together. I owe a lot of thanks to those guys because they were essential to getting this thing working. Plus, I was valuable to Artemis over at Aurorum, who puts together the Wombots. I had feedback about things, and he took that feedback into consideration and is able to use that feedback in his iterative process. So it was a mutually beneficial relationship, and I count them both as friends to this day. Bottom line, if you're looking for a sub $1,000 US printer, please consider the Wombot XL. It's a wonderful printer that does a good job, and I think you would be happy with what you're able to do with it. That said, if you're a beginner and you have no experience with 3D printing, you may want to do some research or bone up on your knowledge a little bit before investing in a printer like this. It will require some TLC, and it will require some late nights where you're swearing at the machine and wanting to throw it out the window before everything dials in beautifully and you're elated with the print on the bed. Well, that was fun. I'm really sorry about this format because this is the only table I could find. Maybe I'll go to IKEA and find a different table with a cool name. Maybe I can build a table. I don't know. The possibilities are endless. I just know I need a table so I can review better printers higher up and not have to take a knee every time I want to do this. Thanks for watching, you guys. Hey, like this video if you like Australia, if you like Wombots, if you like RepRap printers, if you like cool things that print and look like this. Share this video with your friends if you think they're considering a printer and might find the information I've presented valuable. A big thanks to my patrons who support me through patreon.com. As always, I don't ask for any money. I ask for digital high fives socially, but if you want to go against my wishes, you're more than welcome to donate $1 a month through my Patreon account. I'll put it to good use. That's it. Hey, if you have any questions, please leave them down in the comments. I do my best to answer everybody, and if I don't get to you, I'm sorry. I will try. But if you have any questions, please leave them down in the comments. Well, thanks for coming along on this little journey. I'm glad I was able to tell you about this little printer. Until next time, as always, high five. Wait. I almost forgot. This printer is going to leave me. That's right. I have a deal with Chuck over at Chuck Hellebuyck's Electronic Products. Chuck is far more talented at putting things together than I am. He also runs a far better channel than I do. You should subscribe to Chuck. Seriously, I'll put the link to his channel down below. I'm going to give this printer to Chuck, and Chuck is going to rehabilitate it. He will look for broken pieces. He will look for parts that don't belong. He will run wires like a professional. He will rehabilitate this printer and make it glorious. So be sure you're subscribed to Chuck's channel, because this Wombot review is actually going to shift over to Chuck, and you'll get to see it come to a better life. Oh, crap. Hey, it's Joel, the 3D printing nerd, and this is a Wombot. I've got a Wombot 8-inch Exilis. I can't.